Well, Scarbs, big rush, all the cars coming in a row now. Initial thoughts on the new Ferrari?
Well, the initial thoughts is it looks a lot like last year's Ferrari. They really have kind of kept all of the concepts, particularly with the side pods that we saw last year, that worked, we have to say, quite well for them. Couple of nice little detail changes that I would want to dig into, but really the car hasn't kind of broken the mold for Ferrari. That's probably the overall view here.
Before we start, a big thank you to one of the sponsors of today's video, Raid Shadow Legends. Now, those who've been regular followers of our Twitch live stream know that I've been getting a bit of flack from some of you about upping my gaming presence. Well, here we are, Raid Shadow Legends. I'm playing it for a while now, and you could definitely say I'm intrigued. Raid combines strategy with action. And as you control a team of heroes, you battle your way through levels of monsters and, dare I say it, Formula One team principle like bosses. It's genuinely challenging, and you can customize your heroes and upgrade their gear in order to get an edge on your opponent. So today, being February 14, I'd like to show you my favorite St. Valentine themed hero. Venus is a legendary Void support champion from the Sacred Order faction. She's a high-tier debuffer that plays a role in all areas of the game. Phoenix is an epic spirit attack champion from the Sacred Order faction, and if you can get him early mid-game, he can definitely hit hard. Juliana is an epic magic attack champion from the Sacred Order faction. This beauty comes equipped with a 3-turn poison debuff as well as a 3-turn HP burn debuff. Love is in the air, even in the world of raids, so new players can enjoy a special Valentine's Day themed adventure with the Raid Love Quest. All you need to get involved is to download Raid from the links below, copy your in-game player ID, and then head to raidlovequest.plarium.com. There, enter your player ID and set out on this heartfelt quest running from February 14 to March 14. Play one of the Valentine's themed mini-games for a chance to win some excellent in-game and real-life prizes, including Valentine's Day themed raid champions and even Amazon gift cards worth up to $1,000. If that's not enough, Raid has just released a legendary champion based on MMA legend Ronda Rousey. You can obtain Ronda for free simply by playing Raid for 7 days between now and February 20. Ronda then will be yours. And if you haven't started playing Raid yet, click on the link in the description below this video or scan the QR code on the screen here. You'll receive unique bonuses worth $35. We're talking free epic champion here, Jotun, 100k silver, 50 gems, and 2 epic skill tomes. Thanks again to Raid for sponsoring this video. And now back to Scarbs and our review of the SF23 Formula One Ferrari. So the side pods, you say, very much like last year, different, therefore, philosophy from, say, the McLaren that we saw yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, very much. You know, we've seen lots of people take some of Ferrari's ideas, like that ridged shoulder of the side pod, but then mated that with the, the Alpine Red Bull style sloped side pod to feed the air down to the diffuser and the beam wing. Ferrari have chosen not to do that, and the side pod still ends really high with a Coke bottle cooling exit as well, which is potentially really inefficient to release the air into that area compared with these big cannon outlets that we've seen everybody else have. So yeah, Ferrari sticking to their guns. Now, in my opinion, that's a negative thing. That's not how I would design a car. But then again, I'm not a Formula One car designer. Ferrari clearly think they've got something there. And what they're aiming for with this side pod package is really, again, as we spoke about last year, trying to reduce the drag of the car, but not go for the maximum amount of downforce. Of course, we don't know what's going on underneath the floor of the car, which is the primary important area, and we simply can't see that at this stage, particularly with the really dark pictures that Ferrari launched the car with. I had a lot of trouble seeing a lot of the detail anyway. So yeah, so Ferrari don't seem to have sort of changed their sort of key concept. A couple of other little details on the car. They've gone for that slightly shorter nose and not that lovely pointed Ferrari sort of 640 style setup that they had last year. Also on the front of the car is the slot gap separators, which are the little supports that hold the little bits in between the rear wing. Now, they've copied something that Mercedes brought last year, which were these fin-shaped ones. Ferrari have done them ever so slightly differently. Now, to my understanding, I think these are illegal. Again, I'd need to go back and have a proper look at the regulations and what the FIA have said and how Ferrari have done it. But I think this is, a bit of subterfuge, just something to kind of catch people's eyes and go, oh, oh, they've got that, and maybe not look at some other little details in the car. So that's quite interesting. I personally, I don't expect to see those veins on the car when we get to the first race. They may appear in testing, but of course, perhaps when you're allowed to do stuff like that. But I think that is just a little bit of fakery going on. Throughout the rest of the car, it's all pretty sensible. They've followed very much the Alfa Romeo Haas front suspension setup with quite a slope to the front wishbones, but not especially high, certainly not as high as the Haas, interestingly. And for me, one of the little those little cool things that you pick up on a new car is at the back of the halo mount, just behind the driver's shoulders, they've just built a tiny little winglet, almost like the things that support the mirrors, which I've never seen on a car before. And that's pretty cool. But overall, I am perhaps a little bit underwhelmed with what Ferrari have put in front of us today. And, it'd be interesting to see how that car does develop through the year and how it stands up to, the resurgent midfield and to where Red Bull are at and, what Mercedes can do recovering from their 2022.
If you had to predict where Ferrari will be in terms of top speed on a really quick, long, straight circuit, we know there are plenty of them on the calendar now. How do you think they'll compare wing setting for wing setting alongside Red Bull and Mercedes now?
Well, in theory, they should be really fast. Again, there's some assumptions that this aero package is working for them and they don't have to crank up the rear wing like last year. And that they have the power unit reliability problem sorted out, because their power unit last year certainly didn't lack power, but they just couldn't run it in the modes they needed to in order to maintain reliability. So in theory, they should be much better. The car should naturally have less drag than its rivals. The only way that you could counter that, which is mainly from Red Bull and Mercedes point of view, is if they have got so much downforce from their underbodies because of the way they're working, and certainly this is how it was for Red Bull last year, that they don't have to run as much rear wing anyway. And that is another way of reducing drag rather than using the side pods to reduce your rear tire drag. So there's two ways of tackling it, and it will be a battle of the concepts. Now, they could all end up being super fast over a lap with quite different ways of creating the lap time between the corners and the straights, as it was last year, as it has been for the past few years. So yeah, I feel that Ferrari have probably dropped behind potentially in overall performance from where I would expect Red Bull and a Mercedes to be when we finally see their cars.
We're seeing the new 23 spec size mirrors, rear vision mirrors on the cars now, Scarbs. Are you used to those already? Are there any differences in approach into how they're managing the air around those?
Surprisingly, they're 50 millimeters wider there, so they're 25% wider, which you would have thought would be quite jarring on the eyes. They're not any deeper than they were last year, although we did see some teams test that. The FIA didn't put that into the regulations. And yet, straight away, they just feel natural, just as they were when they went from the tiny sort of 90s mirrors to the one that we all effectively have, the 150 millimeter ones for the past, couple of decades. Got used to the looks, and in terms of how teams are managing the airflow around them, as has been as varied as it has been for the past few years. Again, it's one of my bugbears that teams make too much of these supports, and it really needs to be kind of stripped away a little bit. But they are aerodynamic devices. The teams are really exploiting them to their maximum. Everybody's got a different solution, and I don't think there's a lot of time or a lot of importance to the differences between the teams. It's just one of those little kind of packaging things that just makes the car look ever so slightly different from its rivals.
Well, thanks for that, Scarbs. We look forward with interest to see how this car now compares in a straight line and also in terms of downforce levels with its nearest competitors. And a big thank you again to the sponsors of today's video, Jetcraft, of course, and also to Raid Shadow Legends.